Penguin Random House Audio presents The Hard Questions, 100 Essential Questions to Ask Before You Say I Do. This is the author, Susan Piver. For Duncan, you're the one. Forward. Loving is a journey with water and with stars, with smothered air and abrupt storms of flower. Loving is a clash of lightning bolts and two bodies defeated by a single drop of honey. Pablo Neruda from Sonnet 12. I chose to open this book with these beautiful lines from Pablo Neruda nearly 20 years ago, when the manuscript for the first edition was taking shape. At the time, I was just about to get married. I thought I knew what they meant, something about growing closer and then more distant, giving and withholding, loving and estrangement, and that enigmatic single drop of honey, the unbidden moment when everything simply melts and a new layer of love is revealed. Whatever I thought these words meant then, they mean even more now. After experiencing so many ups and downs, mysterious bursts of new love and equally mysterious disappearances, the passing of loved ones, and the blessings and difficulties of aging, all with the same partner, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to revise this work in light of that greater and still evolving understanding. I hope this new edition of The Hard Questions will invite an even deeper conversation between two people considering a most potent commitment. Some parts of this revised work remain the same. Questions according to certain categories in our lives, home, work, children, and so on, the spirit of the suggested dialogue, and the intention to use these questions to lead to a commitment one might actually be able to honor. There are differences, too, added questions about the place of technology in our lives, new questions that reflect changes in how we live or don't live physically together with partners, and cultural shifts in the way we think about finances, nutrition, and spirituality. I removed the chapter with questions about sex because answering questions about sex places the conversation in a purely conceptual context. Conversations about intimacy may be quite valuable, but the intimacy itself is a better guide for a couple than any questions I could put forth. I added a whole new chapter called Society to cover increasingly fraught political and environmental issues, and also to take into account issues of inclusivity and cultural biases. These questions aren't meant to put my political beliefs forward, but to elicit conversation about your own. At this writing, asking the hard questions has inspired and probably mystified hundreds of thousands of couples. The ideas behind this book that loving someone and loving your life together don't always seamlessly connect, that feelings, desire, and personality change, have apparently resonated with many people. They, like my partner and I, were looking for a practical, accessible tool to create intimacy beyond romance. It is my profound hope that this book has helped them in some small way to create their own version of love. Since The Hard Questions was first published, I have received countless emails from couples who have used this book for that purpose. Most began the conversation because one partner thought it would be a good idea and the other partner readily/eventually agreed. Others received it from a friend or parent. They looked at this small, innocuous volume and began blithely answering questions. And, exactly as happened with Duncan and me, at some point or another, one or more of the questions turned into a marathon conversation, complete with yelling, tears, stunned silence, and almost always reconciliation. This is so great. Not to say that I hope to provoke disagreement, but the idea of couples taking a chance on exploring hopes and fears together makes me happy. I know that doing so creates the basis for ongoing intimacy. In the more than 20 years since we've been married, I've only grown to appreciate the process of inquiry into self and other more. The questions themselves are what provide the value, not necessarily the answers. To truly inquire of your beloved's state of mind and heart requires that you offer them a large degree of space, room to be themselves, speak the truth, take a chance. 2, incredible closeness is required. Endless attention to the details of each other's mood, what kind of day they had, the dream they dreamed last night. Noticing your partner at this level, keeping your inner and outer eyes trained on them without blinking, enables you to see the world from their point of view. You get so close that you can see the world from inside their mind, and therefore know exactly what questions to ask and when. Keeping distance and shadowing their every step, this is the dance of marriage. When we first answered the questions during the glorious and crazed time of planning our wedding, like others, we agreed, disagreed, and drew a blank on an equal number of questions. During the ensuing years, many of our answers changed, even if only for a few hours, days, or weeks. There were times when I felt certain that our love was dead. There were times when I was equally certain that Duncan had been my soulmate for all my previous lifetimes and would be for all the future ones. Some nights I would get in bed after he was asleep and put my hand on his chest to feel the rise and fall of his breath and the beating heart underneath. I would cry at the preciousness and impermanence of those sensations, and my own heart would expand and expand with equal parts love for this cherished being and pain at the anticipation of our inevitable, though hopefully distant, parting. Other nights, after arguing about something big, where to live, or more likely small, the importance of using an electric toothbrush, I would get in bed and turn my back on the unknowable oaf who dared call himself my husband. What a jerk. Over and over, we've experienced phase after phase of distance, followed by closeness, followed by distance, etc. We've been consumed by love, anger, boredom, and all manner of passion for each other, positive and negative. Throughout all these phases of emotion, attraction, friendship, and estrangement, one thing has remained constant: our willingness to inquire into the truth of the other's heart. As we've been able to ride the waves of feeling, no matter how pleasurable or painful, we've remained companions and partners. The moment we took our eyes off the reality of our shifting hopes and fears to gaze instead at the way we wished reality looked, we found ourselves estranged from each other. Over and over, we've learned the lessons of staying awake to each other's shifting energies through the simple process of asking questions and being willing to listen wholeheartedly to the answers. Throughout, I have seen again and again a single truth that makes the hard questions worth exploring. They are going to come up anyway. It is better to answer them consciously, lovingly, honestly, and during a peaceful time, rather than to have an argument about them later. If you agree on the answers to certain questions, celebrate. If you disagree, celebrate. You will have learned important things about each other before they have a chance to become points of contention. I wish you all the strength and softness you need to answer the hard questions genuinely and honestly. Here's to love and its endlessly surprising power to heal, embolden, and expand the heart's capacity beyond what I could ever have imagined. Introduction. When my husband, Duncan, asked me to marry him, I immediately tried to break up with him. We had been together 5 years. Through his divorce, my move to another city, career upheavals, and trying to make things okay for his hurt, loving young son. I loved this man. I loved our relationship. But I couldn't imagine promising to love him or anyone for the rest of my life. How could such a thing be possible? Every relationship I had ever had up to this point, romantic or otherwise, showed me that feelings change. If I stood in front of the world and promised to love him, I would start our partnership with a lie. With great trepidation, I suggested a month of separation to think things over, I wanted to
Sample complete. Ready to continue?